All right, here we go. We'll start off with Patrick Saunders. Patrick?
Hi, Max.
Hi,
One of the
Patrick.
guys I'm most intrigued about this year, and I'm assuming you are too, is Sam Hilliard. We've seen his power potential, some of the things he can do. We've also seen, as happens to many rookies, a high number of Ks. What's he looking like to you through spring training and, of course, through this limited time since you guys reopened? Second part of the question, what's his upside in 2020?
You know, Sam is one of my favorites. You know, when I saw him in spring training last year, first time I laid eyes on him, I was very intrigued, just his size and the easy power. He had a pretty good idea of the strike zone. I know he strikes out a lot, and I know 2 years ago he struck out close to 200 times, but I think he's got a pretty good idea of the strike zone, and I think as he gets experience up here, gets really good pitching, and I think he's got a really good understanding of his swing and what he's got to do to make good, consistent contact, hard contact. You know, the sky's the limit. You know, he had 40-plus home runs last year, counting the his little stint with us here in Denver. You know, he's got that power where if he just barrels the ball up, especially here at Coors, where he can just barrel the ball up, and with the right trajectory, it's going to be a home run. You know, he doesn't have to create a lot of bat speed. He doesn't have to use a lot of his body. He's got very good hands at the plate. He reminds me a lot of Charlie. You know, he can manipulate the bat head, and you know, when he makes hard contact and it's in the air, it's more often than not going to be a home run. So I'm a big fan of Sam. He's a great kid. He's very easy to work with. He wants to be great. He doesn't want to just be a big leaguer. He wants to be a great big leaguer, and that always helps. He wants to put the work in. Very athletic. You know, I'm a huge fan. I'm glad you started this off with Sam, because you know he's one of my favorites.
As a follow-up to that, I think it was Thomas Harding who had this theory. We were talking back in spring, which seems like eons ago, and he was saying that, you know, when Sam has a chance to study upcoming pitchers as opposed to who's ever thrown in there against you during a Cactus League game, Thomas's theory was the strikeouts are going to come down because Sam has the intelligence, the wherewithal, and the want to study the upcoming pitchers, and because of that, he's going to know more coming up to the plate. Do you agree with that theory?
Absolutely. I think he's going to make full use of the information that we have up here. You know, I think TD and AAA did a great job with him, making some changes with him, making him a little more consistent with the hard contact, giving him the information that he needed about the pitchers that they were facing. I think that really helped. The time that he spent here with us, you know, if we told him, hey, you need to kind of think of this guy, maybe get a little more on top of the ball, because his fastball is going to have a little bit of spin on it, going to have some ride, and he would right away make the adjustment. He would do it. He would make the adjustment when he was in the cage hitting off the machine to mimic the guy that he was probably going to face in that at bat, or if it was a starter that he was going to face. And he had that ability to make that adjustment. And that's why he reminds me a lot of Charlie, where Charlie can get a guy. He's not your typical left-handed hitter where it's more of a down and in hot zone for him. You know, Charlie can look for pitches up in the zone, or look for you know, if a pitcher's got that spin rate fastball, he can work on getting the barrel on top of that baseball and still get to those pitches that are in the upper part of the zone that a lot of left-handers don't get to. And I think Sam's got that ability too. And he's smart enough, he's got enough awareness of what his body's doing when he's swinging the bat, that you give him that information. If you can give him that information going into the at-bat or into the game, he's going to make full use of it.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thomas Harding, go ahead.
Yeah, wanted to first ask you about, first I want to say thank you, Patrick. You almost made me cry there. No, but I wanted to ask you about Matt Kemp, guy that we've seen in this league a long time, guy who's done a lot of damage against the Rockies. Know the numbers weren't great in Miami, but what have you seen from him right now, and how close is he to being able to show the bat speed and the things that make him Matt Kemp?
Well, I mean, Matt's been a really good player, really good hitter for a long time. You know, he's a career, probably mid-280s, 285 hitter with pop. He's going to do some damage against left-handed pitching. And what I see so far, you know, the few days that he's been here is he's still got bat speed. He's still got a really good idea of what he's trying to do at the plate. You know, the first day he was out there taking BP off the coaches, he was getting a little disconnected and getting his hands away from his body. We talked about it a little bit right away. The next day in the cage, he worked on it, and then he was a different guy the next day when he was hitting off the coaches. So he's a guy that I've admired across the way for a long time. He did a lot of damage against us when I was in Arizona. You know, he's been a good player, a good hitter for a long time in this league, and I think he's going to help us. You know, whether it's against just left-handed pitching or coming off the bench and facing anybody. He's a guy that I think that we can have a lot of confidence in coming off the bench and having a good at bat. But I think he's going to help.
Oh, sorry. Another follow-up to for me is watching guys like Nolan and Trevor and David Dahl. They're facing some very nasty pitching right now. Pitching, you can get up to 95 miles an hour, whatever. Kind of hard for a hitter there, but they're stepping in against it. Do you think that this accelerated pace that hitters will be able to accelerate and be ready for a season in less than 3 weeks?
I think they can. Our guys are going to grind it out. They were chomping at the bit to start facing live pitching. You know, I know the pitchers missed a lot of time with the cores being shut down there for a period of time. So it put the pitchers a little bit behind, and I know the hitters were really anxious to start facing live pitching. But, you know, I was part of a spring training. I think it was in 1990 was a short spring training. I had my best year as a player. And then in 95, we had a really short spring training because of the strike. And coming back, I think it was like 2.5, 3 weeks. I think for me it was 2 weeks because by the time I signed out of the free agent camp and went to Houston and Kissimmee, it was a very short spring training, but I had one of my best years. So I think if you're adamant about the work, you grind it out. You know, we have a great facility here. I know we only have the one field, but you know, we have good cages. We have a lot of staff here that's going to be available to these guys. So, you know, I know these guys can get a little impatient because they want to be ready when the bell rings, and they will be. They're going to start getting a lot of at-bats, whether it's in inter-squad games or simulated games, and it's going to be ramped up a little bit, but I think when the bell rings, they're going to be ready.
Thanks, Max.
Yes, thanks, Tom.
Tracy Ringlesby?
Hey, Max,
Hey, Trace.
my first question is with Tapia. When you first met him, what particular things did you talk about him addressing? And then what have you seen since you've been here in his evolution?
I've always been a big fan of Taps. I remember when I was in Arizona, I think it was maybe 2016, 17 maybe in spring training, and he went 4 for 4 against us to open the spring, and then the next time we played against Colorado, he started the game and he got 3 hits in that game. So all I saw was him getting hits, and he was very intriguing. So I knew coming over here after seeing him a little bit when I was in Arizona, I knew he had great bat-to-ball skills. His numbers in the minor leagues are a joke. He's always hit 300. But I think with Tap, and he'll agree with this, that when he's under control and he's controlling the strike zone, I'm not saying he's going to be a 100-walk guy, but when he's swinging at the pitches that he needs to swing at and he's got his effort level is under control, I think, you know, he can do a lot of damage in this league. He's going to hit the ball hard. He's going to spray the ball all over the field. He's going to show occasional power, but he's really got to stay inside the strike zone. I think, you know, going into the All-Star break last year, he's one of our, you know, better hitters on the team. And I think as the season kind of wore on, he started getting away from all the stuff that we had talked about, as far as staying in the strike zone and controlling the effort level. When he's doing those two things, he's as good a hitter as anybody in the game. So he's going to be able to consistently hit the ball hard and hit the ball from line to line. And guys that do that, they're hard to defend. So I have a lot of confidence in Tap, and he's just a guy that he's another guy. We have a lot of guys like that on this team that want to be great. They don't want to just be a major league player and get their years in. They want to make an impact on the game, and he's one of those guys. So a lot of times you have to kind of slow him down a little bit and keep him under control, because when he's under control, he can do a lot of damage.
And you've been a hitting coach in a few other places too. How has Coors Field affected your approach with hitters?
Wow. It's affected it a lot because, in talking with the players coming into last year and not being skeptical, but, just wanting maybe to see it with my own eyes, what the big difference was going to be in the way the ball breaks and what it does to guys' bodies. I don't do much as a coach, and I can feel it when I'm here in Denver and when I leave, and how it affects me when I go on the road and when I come back home. And so I can imagine what these players are going through with their bodies, and then add to that the fact that most of our games here at Coors are going to be longer. We routinely play 3.5, 4-hour games because of all the run scoring. And just the way the ball breaks differently here. I think the good sliders, the good curveballs probably break pretty much the same, but it's the bad ones, the ones that, don't break at all, or they'll back up, or the fastballs that really it seems like they get on guys a little bit more here in Denver. And then when you, in turn, go on the road, the breaking ball's got a lot more bite. The fastball's got more movement. And it's real. For sure it's real. The data shows that. The analytics on the way the pitches move show that. And it's something that, can't really do anything about it other than try and prepare our guys. We did it last year, I think the second half. Getting them on the machine right away when we go on the road, getting them on the machine, seeing how the ball's breaking differently, trying to overwhelm guys on the machine so that when they get in the game, it's not so drastically different from what they saw during a 10-game homestand. So I think you got to coach a little bit differently, and you got to take that into consideration when you're talking to the guys and when you're talking about the pitchers they're going to be facing on the road. But it's definitely a real thing, and the stats show it over the course of many years of teams here at Coors and going on the road and struggling. But I think we've got a pretty good handle on it now, Trace, and hopefully we can mitigate it to some extent with the machine and doing stuff on the field that's going to make that transition from being at Coors to now being on the road a little bit easier. Maybe it's not 3 or 4 games into the homestand where guys make the adjustment.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Patrick Lyons, go ahead. Patrick Lyons. Can't hear you, Patrick. We'll come back to you. Patrick Saunders, go ahead.
Hey, Max, return to the theme about some of the young players you're excited about. What is the next step for Ryan McMahon? 24 homers last year, if I'm not mistaken, 250 average, something along there. But I think he would even tell you that it was an up and down season. He'd go through hot streaks and then cool off and peak again, et cetera. But what's next for Ryan McMahon?
Well, I fully expect Mac to, make the jump to the next level of the type of player that he is. I think there's no question for me that he can be an all-star in this league. He's got as much raw power as anybody I've ever had, and I've had a lot of guys that had a lot of raw power. When he realizes and he understands it, and he's made adjustments in this past off season and in spring training, you can see the difference and the adjustments that he made. And I was really anxious to see him after this big break that we had to see where he was going to be at. And it seemed like he picked up right where he left off in spring training 1.0. But, you know, he's got 40 homer power, especially here at Coors, where he's similar to Sam, where if he barrels the ball up and it's hit on the right trajectory, it's going to be a home run. And it doesn't matter where he hits it, whether it's down the left field line or down the right field line. You know, he's got that kind of power. He can put on a show in batting practice. The raw power is there. It's just maximizing the hard contact, right? And making, you know, not missing those drivable fastballs that are in the center of the plate that he at times last year struggled with, especially good high velocity guys. If he can, which I feel like he's made some of the adjustments he needed to make to be able to get to those pitches. When he's doing that, he's going to be very hard to pitch to, and he's going to be doing a lot of damage. But to me, I think if he continues the trajectory he's on right now, you know, I see him being an all-star.
Patrick Lyons, trying to go to you again, Patrick.
Hey, Dave. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Patrick.
So during your career as a player, you obviously had, you know, great bat control, 288 hitter. I sort of see Daniel Murphy as kind of having a similar approach, you know, as you did during your days. What do you know, work on with a more veteran player like himself, you know, in this ballpark? And, you know, what does he need to do? What can you work on him with for this 2020 season to get the most out of him?
Well, Daniel and I spoke at length at the end of the season last year, and he felt like he wasn't covering the inside pitch like he had been over the previous 3 or 4 years. The big adjustment he made as a hitter when he took his game from being a pretty good major league player to being one of the best hitters in the game was he started dominating the inside part of the plate. And you couldn't pitch him in there. He pressed the plate. He started standing closer to the plate, and he dared pitchers to try and throw him in there. And he you know, understood now what it took for him to get the ball in the air to the pull side. He didn't do that a lot with us last year, and we addressed some of the reasons why. We had a lot of data to back it up, and he agreed with it, and he worked his butt off in the offseason to get back to where he was able to get to pitches that were even in off the plate, which he was able to do for many years with Washington and New York, and now able to get those pitches up in the air. And he's shown that so far in this. He showed it in the first spring training, but now in the spring training 2.0, he's getting the pitches that he was not getting to last year. If he was getting to them last year, he was hitting them on the ground. He was hitting them hard, but he was hitting them more on the ground to the first or down the first base line or in the 3-4 hole. Now he's getting those pitches up in the seats, and when he's doing that, he's really dangerous. So
How much of that?
Go ahead.
Oh, how much of that do you think, you know, was attributed to his finger issue he had last year about not getting on those inside fastballs?
Well, he would never blame anything on that because that's the type of person that he is and player that he is. I'm sure it did affect him because he didn't miss a whole lot of time. You know, he probably came back a lot quicker than most guys would have from that injury. And it was his top hand. You know, your top hand is involved in getting to those pitches on the inside part of the plate. So I don't think he would ever use it as an excuse, but I'm sure it affected him to some extent. And hey, let's be honest, he still had a pretty good year for us. Got a lot of big hits for us. Served as protection for some big hitters in front of him. But I expect him to be a lot better this year. I know it's going to be a smaller window with the 60 games, but I would expect that he's going to be a lot better for us and be a force.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, we'll go to Thomas Harding with the final question.
Yeah, Dave, we've talked about David Dahl before, but this winter, did you enjoy some of the video that he turned out? He turned out a lot of video on Twitter, Instagram. How much did you learn about him by watching that? And how much of it did you guys maybe discuss?
Well, it was a side that I had not seen too much of from David. You know, he reached out to his teammates. You know, during the break, You know, we had a lot of Zoom meetings and probably ad nauseum. They were getting tiring after a while doing the Zoom meetings, but it was, you know, I thought it was an important tool for us to be able to stay in touch with each other and stay in contact with each other and just see each other's faces. But David didn't went kind of went the extra yard with that stuff, and you know, he put those videos together and, you know, saying that the players were ready to go, and I guess it was a win and wear campaign. But you know, David is just very quiet. You know, he's very introverted. He stays to himself. That showed a different side to him, which was nice. But I think he's just growing maybe more comfortable in his own skin here in the big leagues, and he understands that, you know, he's got a great opportunity here. He's put together some pretty good years for us, but you know, he wants to stay healthy. He wants to be a big part of the reason why we win games. He's, you know, he's much like Sam and Mac, where they've got very high ceilings, and he's proved it, you know, in the minor leagues, putting together some good years, and he's done some damage here in the big leagues, and he's just got to put it together for a full season. I know we don't have that this year, but I think he's going to show in these 60 games that what his future is going to be like, and he's going to be a big part of our offense.
Even beyond the, you know, win and wear campaign, I remember some of the threads that he had where he took us through his entire workout or what he's thinking when he's doing those things. Are those things that you guys have discussed? I know he has his own hitting guy, but and what did you see out of that whole setup from him?
Well, I heard a lot of stuff that we had talked about over the course of the last year, especially when he was hurt, when we had a lot of time to talk, and he was in the cage, and he'd be in there with me and Sally, and we'd talk hitting, and he'd talk about the guys on the team, and, you know, what makes Charlie a good hitter, Nolan, what, you know, and he would bounce stuff off us, and, you know, we'd say stuff to him that we thought were important, and I think he took that into the offseason. I think he learned a lot. He made full use of his downtime last year after the foot injury, and I think you know, a lot of guys could have just gone home and sulked and just took it as a mini vacation, but he took it where he wanted to try and get better, and whether it was, you know, he couldn't do a lot of stuff physically, but mentally I thought he got better, and he seemed to always ask the right questions, and, you know, we have similar thoughts on the proper swing, and I think he felt a lot of confidence in sharing that on Twitter or Instagram or the different platforms, and it's always refreshing to see guys share stuff like that are more in line with what me and Sally believe in and what all the hitters on our team believe in, Mac and Charlie and Nolan and Trevor. And so, you know, there's a lot of nonsense out there that's on Instagram and Twitter about hitting. It's good to see something refreshing that is a little closer to fact.
Yeah, I thought that a lot of what he said, he kind of explained why he does what he does, as opposed to just telling somebody this is the right way. And to me, that was what kind of resonated, because you have a lot of people out there, a lot of certified hitting gurus that will just give you a program and say this is the way to hit.
Yeah, I like they're closer to being self-certified hitting gurus instead of you know, industry-wide certification. But, you know, there's some good guys out there. It's not all nonsense, but I think a lot of times, you know, some of these guys have maybe 20, 30 guys in their group of hitters, and, you know, not all of them are dominating in whatever league they're playing in, whether it's the major leagues or in the minor leagues. And they seem to always showcase the guys that are doing damage at the time, and they're not showcasing the guys that are hitting $170.
Hey, thanks,
I
Dave.
have to deal with everybody, right? I can't
Right,
pick and choose
that's
the
right.
guys that I want to put on my Instagram feed.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
All right,
Thank you,
guys.
Dave. Really appreciate you hopping
Anytime.
on.
Enjoyed it.